Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today is a great day, and I'd love to start things off by saying this has been officially our first ever live streamed podcast with the one and only Infernals and their founder Ricky. Ricky, how you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good, Ted. How are you?
Doing phenomenal. I think it's
Yeah.
amazing how we're able to set this up through X live stream, live broadcasting, and it's quite surreal to be honest with you. I'll definitely have to host more like this down the road. But I
Yeah.
know you got some quite exciting things on the horizon. But before we
Yeah.
dive into that, I know 3 months ago was the last time we hosted you, and probably a lot's happened ever since then. So, how have things been ever since?
They've been good. Slow. We've like the kind of last time we spoke, we'd just had our third phase, I think, that we came over to Hadira, and we brought a lot of Infernals over in that one, around 330. And yeah, so it was the building phase. So that was a time for us to get our heads down and kind of work with other projects and get some good communication back and forth and the trust of people on Hadira. And I
Yeah,
think on the main, I think that has happened. I think, unfortunately, for a number of reasons and a number of other projects, it's been quiet on the secondary sales front, on the liquidity front. Some exciting things have been happening with other mints, and there's been some brilliant things happening with Hungry Barboons and ESDC, and also Ghosts and Shroomies are killing it as well, and Cabula and Siwas, they're really killing it as well. And we're
definitely.
in we're in that kind of process really of trying to set our foundation, I think. Be Have a little bit of consistency on the chain and really just bet in a little bit. But it's time to amp that up a bit. We're past the builder
Yeah,
stage. We've built. Now we need some bodies.
definitely. Makes complete sense. Before we dive
Yeah.
any deeper into what's coming with phase four, I'd love for you to just to give everybody out there a brief overview of who the NFT Infernals are, what you guys are approaching, bridging from Ethereum to Hedera.
Yeah. So we've evolved into a project that encompasses law in a lot of what we do, and we've certainly amped that up and really took hold of that creativity for the migration. We spoke about it on our Western Wednesdays, which is a Twitter space that we hold every Wednesday, and which have done for nearly a year now. So I think next week's our 49th week. And yeah, it's the migration that I spoke about in the last Western Wednesdays. And we could have really, if we'd been a bit boring, we could have just said, okay, we're going to Hedera, pack up your Infernals. If you're coming with us, let's get them over there and just did it all in one go. But there's no fun in that. There's no kind of
Yeah,
creativity in that.
great
There's no,
point.
yeah, there's no gamification in that. So we've really used law and all that kind of experimenting and the creativity that we've got in our team. And I mentioned Lady Valor and Tiny Universe last time as well. And myself and Jack and Chris are obviously contributing to that as well. And we've used that really to tell a story, but tell a story from which does encompass our beginnings. And for people that don't know what our beginnings were, we were dropped as a free mint in October. So we've just had our 1 year anniversary a couple of months back. We were
Nice.
dropped as a
Earth-
thank you very much. It was a good one. We gave everyone who had Hedera Infernals a trait upgrade. So we were able to add new traits and beautify the collection a little bit over here, which was really cool. And Chris worked his backside off with that one because he's the artsy one in the group. Yeah, we dropped as a free mint. We did have kind of people leading it a little bit, but they weren't the original people who dropped it. And then we took over in January. Really struggled a little bit. The price was never going to be what it was 2 weeks after mint, and you get all of that kind of backlash and stuff from people and people wanting to
Sure.
make their bags and stuff, which is understandable, but it's also unrealistic. And manage that and manage expectation. Fast forward to a few months back, probably about 4 or 5 months back, we were done with Ethereum. Was it when the gas price is higher than the NFT you buy, and you're ultimately dead. You're clinging on to life over
Yeah,
there.
that's a great point. I think that's
Yeah.
why a lot of people struggle on Ethereum because of those gas fees and how unsustainable the chain may be.
Yeah. So we had a vote, a community vote, and we decided that we were going to move over to Hedera. And yeah, and to do that, we had a number of phases, which if you don't mind, I'll share with you what them phases were, and that'll lead us up to phase 4, I think.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's start from phase 1 and work our way back and all the way up to phase 4. I'm getting quite excited for this phase 4. I think it's another great step in the in the right place for you. You're just knocking off milestone by milestone at the end of the day and accomplishing everything you're set out to do. And so let's start out with phase 1. Let's do it.
Yeah. So just prior to phase 1, so me, Jack, and Chris have been speaking a little bit about the possibility of moving over Hedera. Obviously, Jack Timothy, for people who will probably know him in the space already, he has been involved with Hedera for quite a while. He's obviously works with Capula and is a growing voice in the space, which is really cool to see.
Definitely.
So he'd been speaking about Adira for a while. We then got people on one of our Western Wednesdays, and they turned up, which was great. Sometimes on Ethereum, we had guests here that would come, and then they wouldn't come, and it would just be a little bit awkward. But then we put out a call to Hedera projects come, and they came in their droves, which was amazing to see, and exactly what we wanted. We wanted a community of projects that supported each other and didn't want to
Of course.
succeed because others didn't. And we'd experienced a lot of that on Ethereum. So that was brilliant to see. And that was the kind of the final decision maker, because up until that point, we were moving to Polygon. And we changed our mind last minute after that Hedera space and went with that and went with it to Hedera. So we'd been talking about it. Jack had come up with a plan for it. And ultimately, what happened to give away the magic, the reality behind the magic, was Jack took one of his Infernals, didn't matter which one, and he tried burning it and then reminting it on Hedera. So that's the process that we've took. It's a very manual process. Our
Yeah.
holders burn the NFT on Ethereum, which is such a, I guess it's one of them. Ultimately, it's a bit of a scary thing to do. You're throwing money away. You're sending money to a burn wallet, and
So it may
and
come off as in reality, but it's still
yeah,
going somewhere else as they know.
yeah, so it's a crazy process. I think unless people or your listeners and viewers can correct me, I don't think there's anyone that's done what we've done, especially in that way. So to do that, but because we're steeped in law, we had a story to go along with that. So I'll share that story with you, and it's the story of Jack. So one day outside the village of Levi, Jack was on a trail headed towards the Golden Harbor when out of the corner of his eye he saw a shimmering light coming from underneath the rock. He stopped his horse quickly and dismounted to check out the strange object he had stumbled across. As he kneeled, he noticed it was a circular mirror with a black button in the middle. Thinking nothing of it, he pressed the black button, which sent a sharp pain through his thumb. In discomfort, he dropped the mirror on the ground, and to his surprise, as the mirror hit the ground, it didn't break. He also noticed that there was a small amount of blood coming from his thumb where he had pressed the button. Suddenly, a bright red light showed up from the mirror, creating a sphere that sat above it. Shocked by the sphere of red light, he stepped back in fear. Just before he could turn around to run, chains flew from inside the sphere and wrapped his body, causing him to fall to the ground. Stuck with his legs and arms tied together with a rusty metal chain, he attempted to wriggle himself forward. As he was gradually creating a little distance by wiggling on the ground, the chains tightened and drew him back towards the unknown capture. Although he was fighting hard, he continued to be dragged towards the sphere. Just when he thought things couldn't get any worse, a fiery hole opened up, revealing what can only be described as a whirlwind of fire in the centre of it. This only caused Jack to squirm more as he was pulled towards the opening of the sphere. The closer he was pulled towards it, the hotter the air became. He was thankful to have his heat filtering mask on, which provided him with cool, breathing air, but the rest of his body was so lucky. Slowly, his feet caught fire, and then his legs. Most apes would have passed out from the lack of breathable air, but being he had his heat filter over his face, he was still able to breathe and endure the pain. Eventually, his fiery feet, then legs, entered through the opening of the sphere. Finally, the rest of his body went up in flames. The chain kept pulling the flame ape into the sphere until the flames were no more. After a few minutes, the hole in the sphere closed up and the sphere itself shrunk back down inside the mirror. To this day, no one knows what happened to Jack, but travellers reported hearing his screams in the desert of night. So that was Jack disappearing.
And that is phase 1, correct?
So that's just the story of Jack. So
It's a part of the lore, gotcha.
yeah, so that's the story of Jack. So we would basically put that into that. So it was an event that happened for Jack, and we then set about, okay, this works. What we've got is going to work. The system we've set up is going to work. So we need a way to ultimately move that forward and convince other people to to get on board and come over to Hedera and burn their Infernals, which again, no easy sell. Hey, that money you spent, how about burning that?
How much does it cost to burn these Infernals on Ethereum?
So it
I know it's
costs,
relatively cheap to migrate them to Hedera.
yeah. So all of the cost involved with the process we've set up is on Ethereum. Ultimately, it costs
Sure.
1 pence, I think, or even less than that
That's good.
to airdrop it on Hedera. But the gas on, you would pay gas essentially to send it. So that could be anything depending on where gas is. You know, we've seen it as high as $9 for people to send that over, which
That's
is, yeah.
Yeah. I also just want to mention that you were getting a lot of hearts in that X live stream as it's still going on regarding the lore and the storyline behind Jack. And so I just want to
Yeah.
give you those hearts right back in return if you did not already see them.
No, I didn't. I'm not watching the stream. I'm trying to be professional and concentrate.
Of
So
course.
I'm keeping away from that side of things. But I'm sure Jack and the gang are all there.
There's definitely a learning curve to all this with live streaming. I got to tell you that. It's
Yeah.
first time. I'm making sure I got everything going and we're going smoothly but surely.
Listen, Tate, we are the perfect project to do that stuff. We've been forging a path this whole time and trying new things and experimenting. So you couldn't have picked a better project to do something new with, because I think that ultimately is at our heart. I think trying new things.
Yeah. And just now,
Yeah.
as we're speaking about the one and only Jack Timothy joined the X Live space. He's saying, "Let's go, Ricky boy." How
Let's
about
go.
that? Gotta love it.
Yeah, when you
My
see
next
it, when you
question to you.
go and say,
Oh, go ahead, Rick.
I was just going to say, when you say Jack said, "Go ahead there, Ricky boy," I can hear his voice in my, because he pretty much says that to me every day. He's my personal
Nice.
cheering squad.
Let's go.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So moving forward, how many NFTs after phase 4 will have been officially migrated from Ethereum to Hedera?
So after phase four, as of now, there's around 467, roughly. I think Chris and Jack will be able to clarify that. But if you were to look at the marketplaces, then there's 467 Hedera, Hbar Infernals over here. After phase four,
Nice.
this is the $1 million question. If we've got 467 on Hedera, then given the fact that we're a 5,000 collection is where my maths comes in. We've got around 4,600 and 33. So we've got quite a lot still over on Ethereum.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of big holders as well. I think I've got around 102. Jack and Chris can't be far, if not a little bit more than that. Scott, who, when we were doing some statistics and stuff the other day, Scott was one of the biggest migrators of Infernals from Ethereum, and he's still buying them on a daily basis, even from Hbar. And Wiseman as well, and Leroy. We've got a few people with kind of big bags of Infernals that'll bring them over. If I was to estimate how many we had with active people who have taken part in this already, I'd probably say there'll be around maybe close to 600, maybe just over. But the strange thing is, and this is going to sound really strange to you, is we we don't want all of that 5,000 collection over Hedera.
I was about to
Our,
ask about that. To be
yeah,
honest with you. Yeah, I was curious.
no, we know that our collection on Ethereum is too big. And it would be far too big on Hedera. Now that doesn't mean that eventually on Hedera we won't have 5,000 NFTs, but they won't be the ones from Ethereum. They'll be built up of other things and other goals and stuff we have for the project around new things that we are talking about but haven't got any concrete plans on just yet. Yeah.
Was there anything about phase 2 or 3 that you wanted to mention?
So we've got phase one, two, and three. Now phase one has a couple of different elements. So I read all of Jack's story. I think what I'll do is I'll read a little bit about. I'll read the part of the story that we chose to share with the holders that ultimately inspired them to be part of this journey. That was a real was a real milestone for us, I think, because we had this idea. We wanted people to get on
Yeah.
board with it. At the point of us doing this, I don't mind saying, and I think others will agree, our community had shrunk to a point where there was just a few people around, and a few people still really cared about what Infernals were doing.
Yeah.
So to get any of them involved in an idea as crazy as burning your Infernals and come to Hidera, that was something we needed to really capture their imagination with. And I think the story that was put together for that was really inspiring. So if you don't mind, I'll share that part of it.
Let's do it.
Okay. So phase one, the rescuers. So this part of the story is called Pongo Visits Jack's Home. So as you remember from Jack's story, Jack had disappeared. He'd found something. This unknown entity had taken him through this sphere. So Pongo visits Jack home. So what have you gotten yourself into? Was the only cohesive statement Pongo could muster as his eyes tried to make sense of the documents plastered along the walls. Jack's sudden disappearance had put everyone on edge, and he was beginning to understand why. Page above page of notes with letters #Hbar littered across them like punctuation marks would lead anyone to believe the ape might have gone mad. He couldn't quite make out what any of it could mean, but Pongo was able to extract two key pieces of information from all of this nonsense. That Jack truly believed this to be of great importance, and regardless of where you looked in all this mess, all roads led to one place, Hidera. A chill ran down Pongo's spine as the air began to thicken around him, seeing this as a sign that he too might be travelling down a path that was not meant for him to trample. He gathered up what he could and began making his way towards the door, stopping only briefly to grab a map. Jack had left sprawled out near the entrance. If they were to believe that Hidera exists, it was clear it required some sort of key, the Imago Bola, to call it into reality. According to the map's legend, if nothing else, this gave them a place to start, somewhere tangible to look for clues to Jack's whereabouts. The sheriff surely will be pleased. So they were 26 rescuers, essentially, and that's the special trait they got when they passed on to Hidera. That was a group of people, a group of Infernals were burnt and reminted because the story is
Yeah.
in tandem. But ultimately, that was an opportunity for 26 people to move over there and join the search for Jack, because at that point, he'd disappeared. We didn't know where
Yeah.
he was. We didn't know what he was doing. So yeah, so we had that kind of opportunity to present that story to them and say, listen, Jack's gone missing. Does anyone want to help find him? We'll send a search party. And we sent 26 Infernals over. So 26 individual people. The criteria was anyone could have, but actually only 26 took the opportunity, could send one Infernal to Hidera. And you could only do one. So that was the first time that we did any kind of migration. And
So
yeah,
phase
20,
one was only 26 NFTs.
yeah,
You've already done closing in on 500 total out of all 3 phases.
yeah. So far, yeah. So phase
That's
one was just a little taster, really.
yeah, really what is possible, especially and just to, I guess one would put it, see if there's even interest from the rest of the community coming back to Hedera.
Yeah. And I think that was one of the things as well. I think one of the things that became really apparent once we'd done phase one, because again, at that point, yes, it was something we wanted to do, but it was still a testing phase. We had a number of questions to ask ourselves. Was the community going to come with us? How was the Hbar community going to react to Billy Big Bollocks from Ethereum coming over here and thinking everything's going to be sweet and rosy? And will the system and the process work? And I think what we found was, yes, the community invested and they trust the core lead team, which was great for all three of us to feel. And then
Definitely.
Hbar community couldn't have been any kinder to us, which was really good. And I think with regards to us or them potentially feeling that we thought this was going to be an easy ride, I think people are seeing how hard we are willing to work to make this work and put into the relationship building and stuff on this side of stuff. So it was a test at phase one. It was something that we were committed to, but phase one was really the opportunity for us to see whether or not this was something that we could do on a much bigger scale. And yeah, we were able to do it.
Yeah, you accomplished that. So what
Yeah.
makes phase 4 different than any of the other phases by chance?
Ah, phase four. Phase four it is different and will be different because of the unknown.
Makes
There's
sense.
yeah, there's different parts to it. Yeah, yeah. I'll quickly skim phase 2, and you've heard about phase 3, and then I'll reveal
Of
everything about
course.
phase 4, if that's all right.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, so phase 2 was the explorers, and I did speak a little bit about this on your old podcast.
Feel free to go check out that if you haven't already done so. Tons of information regarding phase 1, 2, and 3 that we probably won't discuss here.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just a ton more in depth information. Definitely would recommend checking that out. Let's dive
Yeah,
in.
so that kind of rescuer story kind of set the scene about what it is that we're doing, and I think it's probably worth saying. I'm not going to read, phase 2 and phase 3. I will read phase 4 because this will be the first time it's been heard, essentially. So that's important. We haven't shared this with the community yet. We wanted to reach out and do this in a different way and release this information in a different way, which is why we thought of you here. So
Well, I'm
phase
honored. I'll tell you that.
yeah. So phase 2 was the explorers. So phase 2 was ultimately, it was born about by a fact of the rescuers that went over there. They'd went through this portal, and they'd been searching for Jack. Now, what had happened in that kind of time was that there wasn't really any really basic means of communication between the two. But we should have wrote in the law that they had some kind of walkie-talkies or cans on strings or something, but we didn't. We so the rest of the Infernals and family and stuff, friends and family of the Infernals, were all sat back in Aberdeen Bay, or Aberdeen Bay, and the 26 rescuers plus Jack were in this unknown place. So we concocted a story which you can read in full, and I'll explain where when we go through the phase 4 details, because that is another way where it's different. Concocted a story where ultimately we had some characters developed by some of our holders in some of the law competitions that were being running on Twitter. So one of them was Ada, which was by one of our holders, Corinna. And then we had Dark Scorpion, which Erdy had. Then we had Moon God, which was by Brian as well. And then also there was Marcel, which was my wizard. I had one of 10 wizards, and now there's 85 of them. And so the story goes, Ada's getting worried. Ada then goes and speaks to Marcel, who basically is shacked up in an invisible space that he only lets people see if he wants to let them see, in the Elders Forest, which is part of Aberdeen Bay and part of where the Infernals live. And he uses a kind of process essentially to not to speak to them in Hidera, but but use like kind of ultimately a mood defining object, which lets you know
Sure.
whether they're in danger, whether they're feeling happy or sad or angry. And ultimately, the feelings that he got back were excitement, of hope, of kind of prospects, and all of them kind of things. So he shared that with Ada, and also he shared with them that unfortunately the strength of the portal that they crossed is very weak, and that if 3 of them didn't cross, which was Jack, Moon God, and Marcel. Jack was already there. Marcel and Moon God needed to pass as well. If they didn't cross the portal, then the portal would close, leaving them there, us here, and forever. That would all finish. And again, that kind of
Yeah.
amped people up to get more over there, because they then thought that this might be the last opportunity they got. So we sent the explorers over there, and the explorers went over. Ultimately, they were made up of friends and family who were worried about where they were, and also a mixture of people who were just excited about this new place called Hidera. And they crossed in their droves. I think we probably had kind of 120-ish over on phase 2. So it was really quite successful on that one, considering our first one had been 26, and then obviously over
Yeah.
100
Almost
on the
5
second
times
one.
more.
Yeah. The criteria was different. We basically what we were able to do, which was a massive added bonus, because we were reminting the Infernals on Hbar. We were able to add some special traits. So the rescuers, them 26 rescuers who were ultimately the bravest of the Infernals, all now have a
Yeah.
special trait, which is the rescuer trait. And they
Nice.
so there's only 26 of them that have that. And then the next ones that cross got the explorer, and then the next ones from that they've got the builder. And yeah, so we were able to give people traits as they crossed as well, which is another incentive. So that was phase 2 ultimately, and it was we were really happy with it, with the amount of people that crossed on that.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
It's definitely, I think that phase 4 will probably be the best one yet, to be honest, based on criteria, of course.
Mhm.
Before we dive into phase 3 and then leading into phase 4, I'm just curious to know, do you plan on ever releasing any other collections outside of the Infernals that are paired to this main collection, or potentially sub collections of this?
I think in full transparency, it's stuff that we spoke about with the collections. I think one of the things that is, and we mentioned about the 5,000 collection on Ethereum, the way that it was
Yeah,
released as a free mint. We since found out from the artist who we made contact with, because we were able to get IP rights for all of the holders. So anyone who has an Infernal has ultimately, we've got a written signed document from the artist saying they own the IP rights, which is great.
that's amazing.
Yeah,
You
it's
need
cool.
that in my eyes, especially if the art's good.
Yeah. But we did what else? The other thing that we found out about that was the fact that the collection was put together in 2 weeks, which is both impressive and shocking.
Yeah, a very mixture of both.
Yeah. Obviously, it's impressive because the artwork, some of it really hits. Some of it is great. I'm a fan of pixel art myself anyway. But some of the kind of the characters, the cowls, the magician's cowls, the wizards, when it gets to some of the different colors, like the kind of red apes and stuff, I really like, and I've got probably about 20 of them. And then obviously you've got filter masks and stuff, one of which we mentioned in Jack's story. It based on a trait that he had on the Infernal he sent over. Some of that is really impressive. But the other thing is that because it's a 5,000 collection, and I think without being too unkind to the artist came in and did a job for people who were releasing the project, or at least that's the story we were given. The intention for the people who did the project was to ride on the coattails of another very successful pixel art project. And therefore, there's many in the collection that are very ordinary. And I think that we can see that and be critical of that ourselves because we didn't create that. And I think one of the things that me, Jack, and Chris struggle with a lot is, and it was really shocking actually, because you'll have seen earlier on Twitter that Fear, who is ultimately the person we're running from. Fear
Yeah,
is the enemy of all Infernals. There was a battle a while back, and ultimately he took out a lot of Infernals at that point. And then also the idea of having Fear as a nemesis, if you like, for Infernals is because it encapsulates all of the things that really get to people in this space. So the idea that the price is dropping, should I sell my Infernal? When are we going to do this? When is there going to be this? All of that is why Fear exists. So Fear in lore is our nemesis, but Fear exists in
yeah.
every project, and that's the thing that we're constantly trying to battle. So that's why it's there. But he took over Twitter earlier, and I read comments back later on, and one of Jack had said something. He said something not so nice to Fear. So it's trying to fight with Voldemort at this point, and he needs to be careful. I think Jack. But then Fear replied with, "Oh, how's the community project going? And what's it like trying to sell someone else's collection?" And I think that he's flung some of our deepest frustrations with what we're trying to do right back at us with regards to we're trying to build community, and also we are ultimately we're selling someone else's collection. We're not absolutely we're not looking at floor prices all the time. We're not trying to get people to buy in for the wrong reasons. We're completely against fake pumps in projects. We would much rather have steady growth. But ultimately this collection wasn't
Organic.
ours.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's really unfortunate at the end of the
yeah.
day, and that's something that you can prevent in ways, but the way that this project came about, there's no real way of preventing that.
No, and I think both me, Jack, and Chris took on the reins around January, February time this year. And I think we were all looking at this to test ourselves, get more involved with Web3. We've all got skills outside of that. I've got years of project management skills in a different sector, not Web3. And similar to Chris as well, he does a similar job to me. And then obviously Jack's kind of done multiple jobs, worked it from a marketing perspective. He's really up there, really trying to do cool things and kind of be a voice. And we all wanted to
Definitely.
test ourselves in this space. So the opportunity to do that was absolutely brilliant. We've worked really well together. And I think that's the fortunate thing. But now we've done that, the question about whether there'll be collections in the future, but I think the best way to answer that is probably an inevitability. We're probably going to do something else. Whether or not it's tied exactly to the Infernals is still up for debate, but the Infernal story rages on. And we talk about how we get this collection that we eventually going to have on Hedera to a point where we're
Yeah.
proud of, which is why we had the trait upgrade for birthdays. It's why we're talking about how we can implement them trait upgrades and beautify the collection on Hedera that we have, leaving the common Infernals on Ethereum, or as many of them as we possibly can.
Yeah.
And we've got big plans. So I would say it was probably inevitable that would be there would be more in the Infernals hemisphere, because we've got ample opportunity. The law can take us anywhere, which is really cool.
It's everlasting in the eyes of any artist aspiring to be creative and just keep the
Mhm.
story alive. And I think a cool concept that you could potentially pull off, regardless of bridging from ETH to Hedera, the ones that are on Hedera, if you want to continue to create new collections on Hedera underneath the Infernals umbrella, you could just potentially burn and swap the ones that you already have on Hedera to new NFTs to keep the community engaged. It's actually something of your very own. And there's many other values that come with that. And now it's actually originally created by the unique one of one founders of the Infernals. And so just
Yeah.
an idea to throw out there, get your head spinning, and yeah, play
I
things out
take
like that. But
take my yeah, you've hit a nerve. Or yes, is probably all I'm saying to that, because not going to speak about any future plans, but that's definitely one of the roads that we are
cool idea.
very strongly contemplating, is probably the only thing I'll say. Because and the reason I'm being so hesitant about that is because we've spoke about stuff, but we haven't put anything down. And it's hard to do in this case, because you get excited about what the future holds and all the possibilities and the kind of things that you can do. But we're also a project that one of its strengths is its transparency. So me, Jack, and Chris, who have always been doxed, we've had meetings within our Discord where we've just got all our cameras on and we're talking and things. And we were doing that. We were doing that 7 months ago. I know that it's easy to be much easier to be a little bit more doxed now, since some people have left the space. But
Yeah.
ultimately, we were doing that 7 months ago. And I think what we are against, and we had this a lot, we had a few holders who hadn't been around for a while, come in the Discord earlier on this week, and were like, "Hey, when we're going to pump?" And it's just never. We're never going to pump. Like, that's something that if we do, it won't be because of anything me, Jack, or Chris have done. It'll be because people that believe in what we do, and they want to be involved, and the price will go up. But if that price goes
It
up
won't be
because
from your
of
market manipulation. It would just be
no,
from what you offer to the ecosystem as a whole. And then if the demand's there, then that's
yeah,
when price goes up or something along those lines. It's based off of kind of your effect and your actions in the
yeah,
community rather than your own funds investing into these NFTs just to rise the floor price. That's not healthy. And
we
building something quality is.
yeah, and being on that journey, we've never promised anything, and we won't promise things or talk about things until they're going to happen, and until we've got a solid plan for that. Because to give spec, we could come on every week and be like, yeah, do you know what, we're gonna create a game. Yeah,
I
yeah,
wouldn't allow it.
yeah. It's just it's not. There needs to be the demand there, and on the game front
Yeah.
as well. By the way, I don't mind sharing that 2 months ago, I was like, Jack, Chris, done all this work. We're going to create a game, and Jack and Chris were like, we're not. And at the time, I was like, this is something that we need to do. It's something I really want to do. And I kind of dug my heels in a little bit. But then you speak about the things, and this is why it's good to have three people to bounce off. And the time isn't right for
Of
that.
course.
We haven't got the community. We haven't got the buy-in. We haven't got people excited about the stuff that we're doing now. So getting them involved and excited about something which is completely different, going to be really hard to do. So we made the decision that we'll sit on it for a little bit. We've got all the information we need for it. And if the timing's right, the community's right, and the market's right later on, it could be something that we do, but it's not something to rush into. Mm.
Bad. Ricky, we're at the 40th minute now. It's been a
Okay.
great show so far. But you know what 4 means? Phase
Four.
4. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. So phase 3, you'll hear all about on the previous podcast, but it was the builders. We've been here, we've been building. We called everyone forward for that. So phase 4, and this is the first time this has been shared, although there's been a few tweets out about it. So phase 4, the first reveal is that the name of this phase is the Settlers, which is very apt considering the builders have been building. So very short story, and then I'll give you all the criteria that you need to cross, if that's all right with you, Tate.
Let's do it. That'd be a
Yeah,
perfect way to close things off.
yeah. So part 1, so building in a new world in Hedera. So months had passed since Jack's call for builders resonated through the realms. The once vast and empty landscape of Hedera was now bustling with life and activity. The builders, consisting of Infernals and other brave souls, had worked tirelessly to construct a new world for their kind. Saloons with lively music, homes with warm hearts, and general stores stocked with necessities had sprung up, creating a vibrant community. The community that already existed in Adira had welcomed and helped build a home for the Infernals. The most significant achievement, however, was the train tracks. These gleaming rails stretched from the heart of the new settlement, weaving through the lush wilderness of Adira, and ended at the portal that bridged their world with Avatine Bay. The tracks stood as a symbol of progress and connection, a lifeline to their past and a path to their future. The message was clear. Hidera was ready to welcome more Infernals to its embrace. So part 2, the train to Hidera in Avatine Bay. This is the part that no one has heard yet, because we haven't shared this part. So 2 years ago, deep within the forest surrounding Elder's Lake, Jack discovered an abandoned train, a relic of a bygone era. Jack had kept this knowledge to himself, thinking that it could be useful later on down the line. 2 years later, and with a daring plan in mind, he knew the train's existence would be beneficial to future plans in Hidera. After receiving a message via the beacon, the Infernals and Levi had started to lay tracks on the Avatine side of the portal, hoping to connect the two worlds in a way never seen before. The plan was ambitious, to drive the train through the portal directly into Hidera. However, the venture was fraught with risk. The portal, already weakening, might not withstand the passage of the train, potentially closing forever. Moreover, the train had limited seating, creating a dire situation where not all could be saved. The atmosphere was tense as the train prepared for its unprecedented journey. The Infernals understood the stakes. This could be their only chance to escape to Hidera, or it could end in catastrophe. And there is a part 3, but that isn't released until later.
Bad. That's a great
Yeah,
storyline. I really like it.
yeah. So the criteria for this then, this is probably more aimed at Infernals holders because, and all of this information will be shared. One of the things that's very different about this, and I'll share this with you as well, Takes, I'm sure you'll want to look over it, is that this phase announcement will be accompanied with a Gitbook, which is specific to the lore and the criteria that we've used in the phases so far. So it's a one-stop shop, ultimately, to see all of them kind of stories, read all them stories, and see what's happened. Because there has been some stories in between the phase announcements as well about how people are doing in Adira. They're all there as well. And also the criteria is there, so it's a place to go. So that'll all be shared. We Discord announcements. Obviously, we'll release everything on Twitter. We'll release the link to the Gitbook on Twitter and Discord as well. But the criteria, so the train will only last one journey due to the heat. We know this. And there are limited seats on the train. So the allocations for outlaws, so outlaws are any infernal holder of 1 or more. That's the Discord role that they have. They can take over 5. Builders, who are the people who crossed in phase 3, so they'll have a special tray for the builders. They can take 10. Explorers, who were phase 2, could take 15. And the rescuers, obviously being the brave souls they are, they can take 25. Yeah, so we raffled off, as I said about Jack the Explorer. So Jack was just a random infernal that Jack sent over. It's now been trait upgraded to the hilt. It's now a rainbow bionic wizard, which is unbelievable. That happened in the last trait upgrade. That's owned by one of our holders now as well, and he gets special perks. Because he's Jack the Explorer, plays such a pivotal role, he gets to take 50, which is really cool. If you hold all 3 traits, so Builder, Explorer, and Rescuer, you get an extra 10 on top of the ones that you could have before. And any you sweep on Ethereum can be burned directly. So if you buy an extra 20 on Ethereum, you can send 20 over more. And any swept on a Hedera will allow you to extra burns on Ethereum. So if you buy more on Hedera, you can send more of the ones that you already own on Ethereum. And then we've got team allowances, which is 5 plus all the Infernals received from the core team. So we pay our team members in a couple of Infernals a week. So that's CC Dabs, who's part of our Twitter team, Lady Valor,
Shout out
Tiny
Cece.
Universe. Yeah, CC's cool. She's
Shout out all of
great
them.
addition.
They're all amazing.
Yeah. And also Erdy, who does a lot of our art. So they get 2 Infernals every month, and they can send them. They're not part of any allocation. We just said we'll give you the 2 Infernals on Ethereum, and then we have the next phase. You can throw them over as well. So that's phase 4.
Amazing, Ricky. That's quite exciting.
Yeah.
What can we expect after phase 4 is complete? Anything you can release yet? If not, all good. But I'm
I think,
excited for phase 4, I gotta say.
yeah, I think probably the only thing to add to that is we moved to Hadira to escape fear. The Infernals moved to Hadira to escape fear, to find a better world, a world of hope. Fear has popped up again, and you obviously on the Twitter earlier he took over, but he'd also indicated that he'd heard about the portal, and he's wanting to come over to Hadira and exact revenge for the deserters. So I think probably what we're going to have to do is try and be careful with this train journey. But the train journey itself, once we get all of the Infernals on board, we need to keep fear from getting on that train. That's what we need to happen.
Yeah.
But there's a part 3, so put 2 and 2 together.
Let's hope that train doesn't crash.
But yeah.
Too hot and blow up. You never know.
So yeah, we'll see. So it's going to be risky anyway because of the weakening of the portal and how weak the train is. If fear gets on that train, all bets are off. And that's probably as much as I can say about that. But part 3 will be released at some point shortly after the takeoff of the train.
Any closing thoughts, Ricky? This has been an incredible show, a live show. Thank you all
Yeah.
who was able to tune in today. It's been a pleasure. I think we capped out max at 8 or 9 live viewers at once, which was quite
No,
exciting.
that's cool.
First time ever.
Yeah, first of many. But yeah, no, it's been great here. I really appreciate you giving us this platform to share some of the stuff that we're doing. Yeah, it's been lovely to chat to you as always.
Always. Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this show, whether it be live or not, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, or shoot us both a follow. That'd be a great. All of the Infernals links will be linked down below. And once again, Ricky, thank you for taking the time to join me on today's show. Look forward to hosting you down the road, and I look forward to part 3 of phase 4. That's quite exciting. I love the lore. I love everything you're doing, and I wish you the best. With that being said, thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you all next episode. Peace.
Welcome to Gilmore Estates, where we pave your way to real estate success. Our state-of-the-art platform is tailored to empower people from diverse backgrounds, helping them thrive in the world of real estate investment. Through the magic of Hbar NFTs, educational resources, and regular evaluations, you'll not only learn but also earn valuable HTS token, G-Coin rewards along the way. Our innovative tokenomics model closely replicates real estate cash flow dynamics, meaning the more G-Coin you possess, the larger your monthly cash flow. And the cherry on top, our Launchpad grants you the opportunity to own fractions of assets from well-established real estate holding companies. Unleash your potential and start your journey to financial success with Gilmore Estates today.